Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem. This is a postmortem of my Blitz game number 237. My opponent kicked off with e4 here, and I chose to play c5, the Sicilian defense. So we play along normal lines here, c5, d6, d4, the open Sicilian, knight takes. And this is a very common setup with the Sicilian. You bring out the knight to attack the e-pawn, and white brings out his knight to defend it, and that also stops him from playing the move c4. So he can't get a Roxy bind going. So at this point, there's a lot of options. I play knight c6, the classical Sicilian, a lot. a6, the Najdorf, is very popular. e6, a Scheveningen setup. Although e6 has a drawback that white can play g4 immediately and launch what's known as the Keres attack, or g6, the move I played, the dragon variation, which was one of my old favorites, but I don't play it so much in in over-the-board chess anymore because white gets a very easy attack, playing bishop e3, pawn to f3, queen to d2, castle queenside, and then just storm the king side with these pawns. And it's a pretty strong attack and hard to defend, and I just got tired of defending it. You don't seem to get enough counterplay early on to make that a fun thing to play. So that's why I took up the knight c6 line. But for the sake of the video or in a blitz game, it's kind of fun to play now and then. So my opponent instead played bishop c4, and this is it's called the Fischer-Sozin attack when it's played against the Najdorf, which the Najdorf would be if I had played the e6 instead of the a6 instead of g6. I'm not sure if it's such a common move here against the dragon, but well, it is in the opening book, and it's not. The Chess Ninja doesn't think it's too bad, so I guess it's an okay way to play. I don't see it that often, but now this next move is a bit rare. So a3 played. He should probably just follow up with normal developing moves like bishop e3, or a useful pawn move like h3, keeping my knight out of this square. What a3 does, though, is it gives his bishop a retreat square, but you can see that black is basically equalized after that move, so it's just not especially relevant to this position. I'm not going to be attacking his bishop for several moves, so he's got time to deal with that later, and he might be he would do better probably to develop his pieces and castle. Okay, and now for the opening. So fairly soon, though, I actually make a mistake in the opening too, so it allows white to get an advantage. But right for the moment, at least, I've equalized. And oh yeah, the very next move I make a mistake. Okay, I should probably play a6 here. That's the next move. Well, the second choice of the computer, castle or a6. The point of a6 is to control the square b5, and that's why you see it in a lot of moves, and that's why it's the characteristic move of the Najdorf. It's just a really important square to control for black, because the knight here is attacking all kinds of things. And when I play e6, this is virtually an invitation for white to play knight to d5. So the engine says knight d to b5 is the most precise way to play it. And now he's got an attack on this the d pawn that I've weakened by the move e6. So this move that I played on the weakened d6 square. So the move I played, which was e6, weakened that pawn. So that's why it's a bad move. And now it says I should probably play d5. With white getting some edge there. Instead, my opponent played bishop e3, and he keeps the slight edge. I castle. And h3, another kind of slow pawn move. And now we're back in the range of equality. Now I finally get around to playing a6, so my pawn is relatively secure. And the game goes on. Let's see. So at this point, my opponent decides to launch a pawn storm against the king side, a very typical kind of attack plan, although a lot of times white will castle queen side instead of king side, so that he's not loosening up his king position, which is the danger. When you can do a pawn storm with your king here, but you have to make sure you don't lose control of the space around your opponent's your own king, so that he always has to be worried about counterplay from me on these squares around his king. So, but still an interesting way to play. You see, the engine thinks it's still about even. And I'm just developing and trying to figure out how to place my pieces to best counter this attack, and waiting for him to play his break move. So he goes queen f3 and knight to d4. Yeah, I decided to get rid of this knight. It's a dangerous attacking piece, and there are sacrificial ideas on the square e6, as I explained during the video. Maybe not in this particular position, but I just needed a little more space for my pieces. I needed a better square for my bishop, so it seemed like a good idea to get rid of his good knight there. And he defends, and now I play e5, trying to break things up a little bit. And this did create a weakness here, and you'll see later there's an opportunity right here. Yeah, queen g3 would be a good move here. Just moving his queen to this square and lining up on my weak d pawn here. So the line might go queen g3, knight takes e4, knight takes e4, bishop takes. I've got a pin on this bishop, but it's well defended, and he doesn't have a pawn to attack it with, so I guess it's okay there. But then he can grab this pawn. And the material is even, but looks like white is winning the exchange here. What does it say? It says bishop to d4 check. Is there a way to avoid losing the exchange here? King h2 and queen d7. Yeah, so he's going to grab this and bishop to e5. Oh, this is interesting. So there is bishop to e5 skewers his queen and rook. So I give up the rook and win the bishop. So what's it say? It says bishop takes f7 check. Queen takes f7. Okay, so this is a really tactical line here. Queen takes e5. Rook takes e5. Rook takes f7. And king takes f7. Okay, and so now the smoke is cleared, and white has won a pawn after all of that. So we have a rook and a bishop against a rook and a bishop. It's opposite colored bishops, so if we can trade the rooks off, I might have drawing chances here, but white can keep the rook on and press for a win. So that would have been the best way to play it, starting with the move queen g3, putting pressure on my weak pawn. So he played instead knight d5, and now it's pretty much equal again. I have to be a little bit careful. If I take with the knight, he can take back with an attack on my queen and my bishop, although I can take his rook, so it's not entirely clear, but it just seemed better to take this way. Now he chose to take with the bishop, so I took. He takes. And, oh, let's cancel that. He could have taken. He didn't. He played, right. Oh, yeah, so this is where he made his mistake. So he should have taken here. Let's go ahead and look at how the game should have continued. Just the most natural move to recapture. Maybe he was afraid of opening up this line here. My best move is to take, but this is not so simple. It's two rooks against a queen and even material. There's 3, 1, and 2, and 3, 1, and 2. So same pawns, slightly asymmetrical configuration, but very similar positions. Same colored bishops. So it's pretty much just two rooks against the queen, which in theory the two rooks have a slight advantage against the queen, but in practice the side with the queen often has lots of chances, because the queen can deliver all these diagonal checks and maybe coordinate with his bishop to attack things. So would be a tricky game to play from here, although with a slight edge for black. So instead of doing that, I think my opponent must have had some kind of misunderstanding. Didn't quite see all the complications. So he tried to sacrifice a piece here. Maybe he thought he was getting more out of this, but basically he's just giving up that piece, because he can take the knight now. But I trade rooks, and I'm just a piece up. So not much going on. Well, actually, there is an interesting point later in the game. So, I mean, the thing is, I'm just winning here, and bishop takes b2 should have been played. And somehow he gets back in the game. So I start out by not playing the best move here. Bishop takes b2, just picking up more material. There's also queen c5 check, winning the c-pawn. Instead, I sort of go into defensive mode here, and it's just a mistake in this particular position. I mean, sometimes when you're a piece ahead, you want to play conservatively and just win with your extra piece. But he's got a couple pawns here that could become dangerous if I allow them. So that's why these moves, bishop takes and queen c5 check, these eliminate future counterplay that white might have with those pawns. They're just the best way to play this. So he starts pushing his pawns. And again, I don't take the opportunity to win the pawns when I can. Now I'm trying to round it up, but I've given him enough time to defend these pawns, so he does. And I do get my rook active, so that was well played. And then I decide to trade queens. Let's see. The engine says a much stronger move here is g5. So what is g5 about? So that's harassing his queen. And if his queen takes the pawn, then there's a mate. A mate in 9 moves, starting with rook f3 check. Okay, so the idea is to get the queen off the f-file and also give my queen an avenue. So he wouldn't take the pawn. Instead of playing that, he might go back to, well, how about if he goes back to f2, tries to stay on the f-file. Then queen e4. Yeah, my queen can come in. That's kind of what I was aiming for, was a way to activate my queen. So that would have been a much better way to play. I didn't notice that pawn sack. That's an interesting idea. It's called a deflection sacrifice, when you can give up a pawn to get a piece away from an important square. So you're deflecting that queen. I played queen e5 and just allowed this trade, and I'm still winning here, but now it's a much slower process. Would have been much quicker. And you'll see the advantage for white, the advantage for black has dropped quite a bit. And so now he can start getting this counterplay going with his pawns here. And it's actually reached the point where it's close to equality. All right, he's only just 1 pawn advantage in the chess engine's eyes. So let's go on a few moves. We're just trying to, okay. And then here it says b6 is the best way to undermine these pawns. This is an important point too, because I was feeling very nervous about these these pawns. They're getting close to scoring a touchdown here. So, but here's a nice way to break it up. You play the move b6, and of course if he takes it, you can grab the e-pawn and still get back in time to defend. So his best move, yeah, okay, so that was one alternative. C takes b6, rook takes d6, or he could try pushing on with c6, and then you can take here with the bishop and blockade these pawns and be a piece up once again. So at this point, I sort of panicked and sacrificed my bishop for 2 pawns, thinking actually this was some kind of hallucination on my part. I thought I'd be able to get rid of all 3 of these pawns, and then I would have this outside passed pawn that would be easy to win in the rook endgame. Actually, the rook endgame is not at all easy to win. So he takes, and I get my 2 pawns for the bishop, and then he just defends his pawn on b5. And so this is kind of drawish here, actually only half a pawn advantage. So the game continues. So I gave up my easily winning chances and got into this tricky rook endgame. So here is where he went wrong. He shouldn't let me win this pawn so easily. So he can try rook c3 check. And if I take the pawn, what's he got? Rook c7, counterattacking. Yeah, you want to keep your rook active. So he's going after the h pawn. And if I play something like h5, well, it says h6 is the best move. And king e4. Yeah, he can just harass me with this king and his rook, and that actually my king is in a bit of an awkward spot now. Can't move my rook to oppose his rook because he can just grab on b7, and I can't get my king over here. Maybe, yeah, I would probably play king to a6, try and support the pawn, and then free up my rook to move. So, you know, black is still pressing for the win, but it's a much more difficult win. So he played king e4 here, and now we get into a simpler situation. I get the pawn that I was counting on, and this should be a win. Just a matter of technique. Gotta get the rook out of the way and advance the pawn. And you see my score is slowly climbing, and then now the threat is to put my rook on the 4th rank there and skewer or fork his king and his rook and just trade it off into a winning pawn endgame. So he played rook e4 check, and then he went to b4, and that's a definite mistake. He could still fight on with the move like rook e2, rook e1, anything to avoid the trade of rooks, basically. But here the trade of rooks is forced, and now this is a winning king and pawn endgame, so not too much to say about it. These two pawns are too far apart, and this king can't stop both of them. So he grabbed one, and then he resigned. So that's how the game ended. Hope you guys enjoyed that, and see you again soon. Leave any comments you have in the section below. Bye.